Every now and then, you discover a town that forces you to break free of your comfort zone, turning up the heat a little.
Hey sightseers, SightseeingSally here, and Marty's around somewhere. We'll go find him here in a moment. But today we're checking out a town called Hatch, which is the Chile capital of the world.
Named after General Edward Hatch, former commander of the New Mexico Military District, the town has been at the center of the chili growing community since the early 1900s. One newspaper article written January 17, 1929, in the Las Vegas Daily Optic states that the amount of chilies going to market from the area went from 300 pounds to 250,000 pounds in just 3 years, putting Hatch well on its way to becoming the chili capital of the world.
Now, interestingly enough, Hatch was a town that was started and abandoned twice before it finally took root and became what it is today. But before we get into that, we should really find Marty, and if I know him, I have a sneaking suspicion he's probably over there at the Hatch Mercantile Company. Let's go find out if my suspicions are right and see if Marty's in the Mercantile. Now, one thing you'll notice as you're walking up is all the neon signs in the windows just blazing. And if I know Marty, that would have drawn him in like a moth to the flame. And then walking up, we can see some of the old relics here, the antiques that are in the windows. Plus, it looks like they may have been on American Pickers at one point. Oh, I think I seen him. I think I caught a glimpse of Marty inside. There he is. Like a kid in a candy store. I can imagine. Marty's just dying to buy something.
We need this for our wall in the house.
I don't care who you are, but there's literally something of interest for everyone in here. There's just so much to look at. I don't even know where to begin.
Should you walk into the Mercantile, be prepared to be greeted with a smile and the question, have you eaten yet? Would you like some ice cream? Such is how Tico Nunn, the man behind this odd collection of fascinating items, runs his business. Talking to Tico, we discovered he got into collecting at the age of 17 with an old pump organ. By the time he was in college, he had moved up to buying arcade games. Now, when you look around his store, you will find everything from the brightly lit neon signs to fiberglass statues and more.
What's your favorite thing in here, Marty?
Right here. That lamp.
And why is that?
I just like these old, probably originally was a gas lamp and it's turned electric. I just like them old statues.
That really surprises me because I would have thought it would have been one of the old neon signs in here. Or one of the pinball machines. Out of everything in here, I think this one tops my list of one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Well, as much as I'd love to hang out in here all day,
Yeah, we gotta go.
we should probably move on and check out the rest of the town. It took some doing, but I think I finally got Marty to leave. We got more of the town to check out. Now, something you might find interesting is that in 2022, the Smithsonian Magazine named Hatch one of the best small towns to visit. And I can see why. Just about everywhere you look, there's either an interesting shop to go into or a restaurant to check out. I think this is one place Marty won't find himself bored.
Definitely not.
For a mere $25,000, you can have yourself a 1951
Hudson Hornet. Hidden behind the fence here is a small version of the Muffler Man. Somebody redid him to hold a hamburger and a soft serve, and I think he's got a little hat on. And there's two of them right here. Normally you don't see one, let alone two in the same location.
Here's the other Muffler Man that Marty was referring to. You can see his Stetson is laying on the ground next to him, and he's holding an RV in his hand. And if you look, it kind of looks like the RV that was used in Breaking Bad. For those of you who don't know, the reason that these statues are called Muffler Men is because back in the day, they were actually used to advertise for mufflers, and they were holding mufflers actually in their hands.
And as far as I know, they were always Muffler Men, and people just started to repurpose them for other things. Maybe they were made for other stuff, but as much as I know, they were always just Muffler Men.
A lot of them could actually be found along Route 66 back in the day. I spy something else that would be right up Marty's alley. This hot dog that says soft serve along the side of it. What do you make of that?
When's lunch?
Speaking of lunch,
we decided, because it smells so good out here. There is a huge line though. We were gonna go get something to eat, but I think we'll wait now. Drive into town on Highway 26, and one of the first things you'll probably notice are all the statues, the fiberglass statues that are standing out in front of a restaurant called Sparky's.
prior to becoming the location of one of the biggest tourist attractions in Hatch, Sparky's was once the place of backroom poker parties attended by the locals. Completed in 1926, the brick building was originally known as Peacock's Mercantile. With 4 giant pass-throughs linking the two buildings, one side had groceries and canned goods, while the other side held clothing and hardware. Later, a second story was added as a meeting place for Val Verde Lodge. Over the years, other businesses took up residence here, including an auto parts store, an ice cream shop, a pawn store, and a community pool hall, complete with 8 Brunswick pool tables and gaming machines.
And not surprising, the owner of the Mercantile we were just in happens to also be the owner of this interesting collection of statues.
Here's a Marcus Big Boy. I haven't seen one of these in years. Wonder if they're still in business anymore.
Looks like he has the remnants of a mustache on his face.
And he finally hit puberty.
Moving along, checking out over here on the side of this building, I see 2 things that are reminiscent of my childhood. Can anybody guess what they are? Give up yet? Marty, what do you think of these clown faces?
Well, don't let the smiling clown fool you. This thing is probably responsible for at least 3 dozen kids losing teeth.
Fortunately, I wasn't one of them. For those of you looking to add to your Instagram profile, here's the perfect photo opportunity.
Then there's this all-star lineup.
I wonder how many people remember the KFC bucket. Minus the chili peppers, of course.
I remember them when they used to sit on a big pole and this bucket would spin out in front of the KFC. At least I know it back into the 80s.
And then you got old Robin Hood here. He robbed from the rich and gave to the poor. At least that's what I remember from childhood, reading about him anyways. If I also recall correctly, there was back in my home state a town called Wisconsin Dells. And if I'm not mistaken, they had a place there. I don't remember if it was a campground or a hotel that had Robin Hood. And I'm pretty sure they had a fiberglass Robin Hood just like that. Besides all the cool fiberglass statues that you can see coming into town, you can still find old relics like this building in front of us, the old Bisbee drugstore, and soda fountain. I'm not sure, but I think this sign once said American Grocery Company Wholesale. The letters are faded, and it's definitely been painted over on more than one occasion. If you happen to know, leave it in the comments section. Then there's this weather-beaten sign that says Porter Farm Center.
Originally established in 1851 as Santa Barbara, it wasn't very long before Apache raids drove away the settlers, leaving the town abandoned. Then in 1853, when nearby Fort Thorne was established, people moved back with hopes of restarting the town. However, after the fort closed in 1859, the town was left unprotected and once again abandoned. That is, until 1875, the Santa Fe Railroad Company decided to extend a line into the area. By 1880, a post office was established and a railroad flag station made out of adobe was built. Hatch was born.
Speaking of the railroad, now here's a blast from the past. It's a ramp and platform for loading and unloading boxcars. Or as Marty would put it, the old school way of loading and unloading a train. Of course, they don't call this the Chile Capital of the world for nothing.
Every year during Labor Day weekend, the town hosts the Hatch Chili Fest, a huge event for a town with only a population of 1,500. More than 30,000 visitors come each year to check out this festival celebrating the Hatch chili.
Places like Vasquez Farms, the Chili Fanatic, and the Valverde store sell everything related to the Hatch chili.
Surprisingly, the Hatch chili is not an indigenous plant of New Mexico. Instead, these peppers originally hail from south of the border in Mexico, and how they got here is quite the story. It is believed these chili peppers made their way from Mexico not by crossing the border, but by coming through Spain. That's right. When the Spaniards explored Mexico, they brought back with them a variety of plants, including chili peppers. Later, when Spanish colonizers got to New Mexico, they brought with them, of all things, the Hatch chili.
With the most important question being, red or green?
By the way, these chili pepper strings, known as larichas, are a symbol of New Mexico. Considered a work of art and a food storage method, they are a common sight here in the land of enchantment.
There's just so many different interesting things to look at.
Yes, there is.
And now for the moment we've been all waiting for.
Lunch. Back in the old day, I used to smoke them. Used to get them cards with it. You could get free stuff.
But if you read the label, it says, Fumar es causa de cancer. It's probably better that you quit. Right, Marty?
2 heart attacks later.
Not to be all creepy and staring at the restroom, but if you look at that interesting sign.
No, I think that in the past, before they had big highways, that would be registered for on a map of places you can stop and go to a restroom and most likely get fuel and anything else at a Texaco station in service.
Regardless of whether Marty's got that right, one thing's true. Lunches.
Finger looking good.
After a fun day exploring the chili capital of the world, we left, bellies full and our mouths are burning, satisfied we'd discovered what could only be described as the hottest town on earth, or at least in New Mexico.